So I came straight from my BSc, so I didn't have a break in between. I know some people decide to try and get a job first, but I did have a placement year as part of my undergrad, so I did have a bit of experience before, and that was a clinical placement. So as I said, I really wanted to develop my research skills.
6 years ago, I decided to change career. So I moved away from IT management and decided to study health and social sciences. So I did a BSc in psychology at City University, and then I gained some experience working with the Alzheimer's Society and with St George's University of London. And about just nearly 4 years ago, I joined UCL at the Division of Psychiatry as a NHS staff, as I mentioned, and started working on dementia-specific projects.
Before the Masters, I did my undergraduate degree in psychology, which I did part-time with the Open University. And then for the last 2 years of that, I was also working in Mind in wellbeing centres. So I was running confidence building courses and self-help groups and kind of doing initial assessments for people with a whole range of mental health concerns.
So I am originally from Greece and I studied psychology in the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, which is in Greece. And my degree was in Greek instead of English.
Prior to doing the Masters, I completed my undergraduate degree at Southampton in psychology. And then following that, over the summer, I took part in something called the Social Innovation Challenge in India. And this was about working with a team of students from Pakistan and India and also the UK to develop social enterprises.
After the Masters, one of the sort of questions for me was whether I wanted to apply for assistant psychologist jobs or research assistant posts, and I decided to go with the research route, mainly because I felt this was where I felt my skills were still needed to be developed further, and also because I realised you can actually get a lot of clinical experience in a research assistant post. So I think there's a bit of a misconception, I think particularly among kind of undergrads, that research assistant posts are just quite dull and you just sit at your desk all day, when in reality you can get quite a lot of contact with service users and carers and NHS staff. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, really. So currently in my project I'm working with carers of people with psychosis or bipolar disorder, and talking to NHS staff as well. And so I'm really kind of developing my skills in both areas.
So I'm now working as a paid assistant psychologist within a hospital in London. And I think the course was really helpful in that because part of the role as an assistant psychologist is obviously research related, and I didn't really have very much knowledge or experience of research before the course. And I think obviously the experience that I got as well through doing the placement really helped me to kind of get that role. So yeah, really enjoying it.
I started working in research as a research assistant in mental health. And so I actually started that while still doing the Masters, and I really wouldn't have either been able to do the job or have gotten the job had I not done the Masters, definitely. And I think when I applied for the Masters, I didn't realise that I wanted to do that job. So it kind of worked out very well in a very not well-planned way. But it definitely helped, like more than helped, was the reason I was able to do that job. And so I went from there to, I started a PhD.
So while I was undertaking my master's dissertation, I started to work in the Division of Psychiatry here in UCL as a research assistant, and I still have this role, and I'm working in the Community Navigator study, which is a feasibility trial testing an intervention that aims to increase community connections and reduce feelings of loneliness for people with complex depression and anxiety.
So since leaving the Masters, I trained as a psychological wellbeing practitioner on the course at UCL. And so this course taught me how to assess and support people with common mental health difficulties such as anxiety and low mood.
So after my Masters, I decided to go into research, and one of the lecturers for MSc ended up being my supervisor. And I'm now doing I'm now designing a video game to assist people with psychosis with self-management. And if someone would have told me I would do this in my bachelor's, like they would tell me, oh, and you will do this PhD, I would be just like, what?
I did apply for a few jobs when I graduated, and despite getting a first in my undergrad, I didn't get any job interviews. And after my master's, I got interviews for every job that I applied for. So I think that kind of says it all, really, in terms of employability. I guess in terms of the actual interview process itself, so part of the interview was that I had to do a presentation. And I think before the course, I would have been quite worried about that. But actually, you have to do a lot of presentations, group presentations and individual on the course. So that prepared me really well. And actually, by the time I got to interview, I wasn't very nervous at all about the presentation. So in terms of the actual application process, I think it helped. I guess in terms of how it's prepared me for the job, I knew a lot about qualitative research, which is what my project is, and also about psychosis. So I knew very little about psychosis before because it wasn't covered that much in my undergrad. So yeah, having the knowledge base as well.
I felt that the MSc played a major role for me actually being able to get a job in research and actually undertake my everyday tasks successfully. As I said before, it gave me the opportunity to develop the set of research and communication skills needed for the job, but also to understand how to liaise with clinicians and mental health staff and service users and how to engage. So I think I wouldn't have the opportunity to gain all these skills and knowledge if I didn't do the MSc.
So the Masters really gave me kind of a broad knowledge of mental health services in the UK, in particular primary care services. So we were taught about the step care services, so IAPT in particular. And we also had some workshops on CBT skills, so just very kind of briefly and kind of basically learning how to do CBT formulations. And so this kind of prepared me for the interview, for the PWP course. The Masters also gave me a lot more confidence than I had before, so it's really broadened my knowledge of clinical psychology and developed my skills, especially presentation skills. We have something called Journal Club, and this kind of encourages students to present a piece of research, and this has really come in use now that I'm doing a lot of presentations and outreach as a PWP.
It's being up to date with research and getting this new perspective in so many different areas. So for example, I didn't know anything about technologies and how it was used in mental health, and there was this whole new area that I ended up then going into with my PhD. So definitely broadening the horizons.
So, that helped me to pave the way for my PhD. For example, I learned how to write protocol, which was quite interesting, and I was able to actually write my own protocol for my PhD, which is being considered now.
So I want to apply for the DClinSci, the doctorate. So I plan on applying for some jobs as an assistant psychologist and going from there.
I hope when I finish the Masters that it will help me continue in the research career, but help me to consolidate and build that bridge between being clinical and working in research as well.
I do want to go down the clinical pathway, the doctorate, and I have applied this year and have 2 interviews, so fingers crossed. And I don't think I would have got those interviews without the Masters, so I think it is quite essential.
Definitely keep working in mental health. Obviously, like a lot of assistant psychologists, I'm interested in the clinical psychology route, so I'll be applying to that course. But I mean, there's other areas of interest as well. So I used to work for Mind, the mental health charity. I think there's a lot of charities that do excellent mental health work as well, but definitely staying within mental health. Yeah, and hopefully something that kind of combines sort of face-to-face clinical interaction with people with a bit of the research side as well.
So I'm doing my PhD now in my 2nd year, and I think afterwards I might go into video game design, and I might continue I might continue to do research as well, but mainly non-academia side.
Yes, I'm intending to do a PhD in dementia, culture and ethnicity. I have applied, I have been shortlisted and waiting for final decision, so hopefully.